Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tech Break by Friday. Today is another guest episode. We are here with Abhishek Yadav. We are going to have a very interesting topic for today's episode. So, Abhishek, do you want to introduce yourself in a bit and maybe just give a short introduction?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me here, Paras. And hello,
Thank you
everybody.
for your time.
So, to introduce myself, I'm Abhishek Yadav, and I work at Walton Out Mayo Clinic, where I lead data and business intelligence initiative in the Department of Development. My work focuses on turning complex data into clear, actionable stories that helps team make better decisions. And I'm especially interested in how AI is reshaping the way we explore and especially visualize data. And the topic that we have selected here is visual intelligence. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking about that.
That's great. Thank you for taking the time and for explaining to us how this sector is being impacted by AI. So, my first question to you, what inspired you to choose this topic, basically?
That's a really great question to start with. I'm sure you must have noticed this as well that whenever we talk about anything data related, the most of the topics would be data analytics, machine learning, and AI now, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I think in these conversation, data visualization gets lost sometimes. I feel it's a very underrated topic to talk about. And even if we do talk about data visualization, most of us have a very warped sense of definition of it, right? When you say visualization, I think the first thing usually comes in our mind is, oh, it's Tableau, it's Power BI, and a set of dashboards, with all the
Exactly.
KPIs neatly lined up for the executives to just have a quick glance at, right? And the conversation stops there. But I think for me, visualization is so much more than that. I think it's not just about, showing the metrics. I feel it's about helping people to understand what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
I think a good visualization, it won't just inform, but it should actually guide. Like people should be able to say, okay, I see what's happening, and now I know what my next step would be. And I think that's the essence of visualization that many of us don't realize, to be honest.
You
So,
describe it more
yeah.
as a hard skill or as a soft skill? Like, is it more of technical skill that someone can have, or it is more like a soft skill that, okay, I need basically to tell a story with the data that I'm visualizing? And maybe like why?
Right, right. I think that's a really interesting question because, of course, it is a hard skill, of course. Like anyone can learn to use Tableau or Power BI because that is the skill one must have. And not just these two, but any of the BI tools. But I call visualization a soft skill. And I think because it's less about tools,
Mm-hmm.
because of course you have to learn tools, but I think it's more about empathy and communication, especially. I mean, you of course have to learn the hard skills. I keep repeating that, but I think the real impact comes from understanding your audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how they think, what they need, and how to tell a story in a way that actually drives an action and makes an impact. So I feel visualization isn't just design, isn't just about, okay, I can make some complex dashboard. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's more about translation, right? It's about turning complex data, but something into something that people can understand and people can trust, and I think eventually people can act on.
Yeah, I would say that describe it more actually having the skills to use a tool is more of a technical skill. But at the end
Exactly.
of the day, the empathy and the way that someone would tell a story and
Right.
would use the words to communicate with others, especially in a large organization, that sometimes you have to explain data to C-level executives that they don't know about the hard
Exactly.
core terms, that this is the actual human skill, the soft skill, we would say,
Mm,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen any mistakes by working with people that they make by just presenting these dashboards with Power BI only, or any of these other tools, and how maybe someone of our audience that is listening, maybe they can improve their visualization literacy, as we would say.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And yeah, I think before I start answering this, I think I just want to say that with full humility that I have made all these mistakes that I'm going to talk about. Even
Mm-hmm.
right now in my career, I sometimes still do those mistakes. So, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel from my years of experience in the visualization area, I think the most common issue I see is when people try to make their dashboards do too much. By that, I mean they want everything ends up on the canvas, right? I mean, there are 20 KPIs, there are multiple different kinds of charts, there are multiple filters, and to be honest, the end users won't even look at more than half of it. I mean, of course, it looks impressive and it looks like, and even someone who has created it is very skillful for sure. In reality, it I think overwhelms the person who's actually using it. Start our career, I think we tend to showcase our expertise more than actually understanding the business problem. At least for the freshers who are listening, I would say the first and foremost would be a good dashboard should answer. It should be very crisp, right? I think it should answer the main question that the business is trying to ask. So the goal here isn't just to show everything, it's just to help the user decide what to do next. And that's what a good dashboard looks like. Now, while we are at it, I mean, even if we do talk about visualization heavy charts, I think another big mistake is mismatching the chart types or the visuals just for the aesthetic purpose, right? I mean, for example, let's say I'm using pie charts for complex comparisons, and we are ignoring how the labels and the scales actually affect the perception. So I think a chart should also always be chosen for what it reveals, not because of how it looks. So yeah, and I think to answer your next part of the question, how does one improve their visual literacy? There's this really cool quote I saw on the internet that visualization isn't about decoration, it's about direction. And I am so much in agreement of that. I think I always suggest like start with asking a question like who is it for and what decision should this help end users make.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel in order to improve someone's visualization literacy, one should focus on that simplicity and the relevance of the visualization and not just the beauty part of it.
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying, because
Yeah,
basically making something beautiful, even
yeah,
if it doesn't have the correct data or the information that you would need in order to make a
exactly,
decision, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, okay, it's
exactly,
pretty, but it doesn't help me anywhere. So
exactly.
that's really interesting. And thank you for actually being so humble and saying that you also have done these mistakes in their past, and you have improved on your career. This is something that I think it's pretty important to mention for people. You will make mistakes as you move on in your
Absolutely.
career. You
Yeah,
will be there to become a better person, basically.
exactly, exactly. I think making mistakes, I think everyone does that, and so there's no shame in that.
Mm-hmm.
People should own it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. My next question would be, who has influenced you into how you see data visualization today?
Yeah, and again, once again, a pretty great question. And I would say my approach has been shaped by a mix of mentors and real world experiences also. I'm not sure if you're aware of him. People like Edward Tufte. I mean, I have been heavily influenced by people like him, and Tufte really taught the importance of clarity and honesty in visuals. So there is this really cool visualization that every student, every data professional student must have seen, which is called Napoleon's March.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean, if you see in the internet, it's such a great visualization, and Edward Tufte actually described it as the best visualization he's ever come across. So it's actually visualizing Napoleon's march from, I think he was going to invade Russia with all his army, and that visualization is basically showcasing how his army size decreased as the journey went on. And it's, I mean, even for that time, the way it's been visualized, it's so amazing. Like you always look into that visualization and you learn something new. But yeah, I think thinkers like this have played a really important part in helping me understand visualization. But this would be more of a theoretical part. I think the biggest influence has always been the end users, like watching how people actually interact with dashboards. Like I've learned most by seeing where they hesitate, like what confuses them and what instantly clicks for them. Yeah, I think these reactions are actually the best teachers. They remind you that visualization is like how others see it and not exactly what you build. Because eventually you build that visualization for the end user, not for yourself to just marvel at your work. So yeah, I think theory definitely shaped my foundation, but it's just the everyday users and the people who question or challenge that dashboard or that visual. Those are the ones who have truly defined the way I design and translate the requirements basically.
And for someone who is not aware, he's a beginner listening to this episode, can you tell us a bit more about how would you describe a question-driven visualization?
Absolutely. I can answer this. How would you design a question-driven visualization? I think the best way would be to go with the real life experience. So, like, let me talk about one of my experiences about developing a question-driven visualization. So for the healthcare organization that I work with, one of the projects that I took was analyzing the appointment scheduling flow. So, like right from the first call to book an appointment to reschedules, cancellations, and finally completed visits. So it's like a whole big flow of what actually the appointment cycle looks like. So we wanted to visualize that particular flow. But the core question for this visualization that we wanted to answer was like, what's the average time it takes for a patient to actually get an appointment? I mean, of course, we start with booking, calling for the appointment, but then there are so many stages in between that we don't really account for, right? So that's what visualization was trying to answer. But I think the change that I did here was instead of building a very static table with the averages of each stage, I designed a very question-driven visualization, the entire appointment journey as a flow. So like each stage was basically represented visually, and the users could just hover over that and they'll be able to see the average duration and where the bottleneck is. And I think when this visualization was actually when the leaders saw this visual, I mean immediately I think a pattern jumped out. Like most delays, like they weren't happening during booking, but it was between the rescheduling and the confirmation stage. And that's what the question-driven dashboard actually does. It answers the question in a way that's very clear when you actually look at the visualization, but it isn't clear when the data is just a raw data. And for the listeners who want to try this kind of question driven approach, I think I'll always say that start with the question and not the chart. So like before you open your BI tool, before you open any of the Power BIs and Tableaus that's in the market, I would say write down what decision you want the users to make this actually see your visualization, and then design backwards from that.
So we would say, like, in order to summarize this a bit for our listeners, that a question-driven visualization would be simply starting with just a question that you have in mind before making any of the charts, and try to see how the data would actually answer this question, and then choose how to make the chart and use the tool in order to visualize the data. Yeah, the example that you gave, I think it's an amazing one. But yeah, for everyone who wants to experiment with this approach, this is what they should follow, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you so much for explaining this for us. I would like to also ask you another question that I think it's quite interesting. How would you guide teams to shift their mindset from just presenting data to basically facilitating more dialogue?
Yeah, and and that's something which I think every data professional should focus on because most teams I feel they treat dashboards or they treat any data visualization as the final deliverable. And I think in reality they should be the starting point of any conversation. When we talk about guiding teams, I usually ask them just one simple question like, what do you want people to talk about when they see this visual, right? I feel this instantly reframes their thinking. Like instead of just stressing over, okay, which chart should I go for? This is such a complex data. I think they should really start with, okay, I'm making this visualization for that end user. Okay, how technically sound he is, and then what exactly are his needs, and what do you want he should talk about after he sees this visual. So instead of trying to display every metric, start designing visuals that you think will invite more curiosity. And when I say curiosity, I don't mean questions about if is the data correct or not. I think when I say curiosity, it means the people should ask, okay, why has something like this happened, and not just what happened, right? I think they should be after the reason of what of the data of progress that they are looking in the visualization. I think they can start with a very simple tweak. I would say they can always start with is to rename the chart titles. I know that sounds really simple, but it is really effective because let's say if I'm designing a sales dashboard and I want to have a section which says, okay, monthly revenue by region. So instead of that title, I would say, why did the revenue grow faster in, let's say, Western region as compared to others? I think if you have that question framed as a title, I would say that immediately attracts the attention and it just invites curiosity among the end users. So I know it sounds very small, but the phrasing actually turns a static report into a dialogue starter. So because it really nudges people to explore and then discuss and think about it because they see a question right in front of their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting if you ask productive questions about the dashboard.
Exactly.
I would like to go back a bit into the prioritization tool project that you have mentioned before.
Yes.
Can you give us like a bit of a walkthrough, maybe mention some of your biggest challenges that you faced and how maybe you got through these challenges?
Sure. I'm really glad that we are talking about it because that's one of my favorite projects I've worked on, and it's something I'm really proud of because of the good results and good impact overall. So this was for an organization where we needed to prioritize customers more intelligently, basically rank them based on different factors. So initially, I think the most more traditional approach is the ranking based on the RFM model. I'm not sure if you have heard of it, but it's the recency, the frequency, and the monetary value based on the weighted averages of these three features. Traditionally, we rank those customers, but here we actually incorporated richer data sources to make these rankings, make these prioritizations more scalable. So when I say besides RFM models, we had more data sources. I mean, there's this Zillow home value, which we got through an API, through Zillow API. And these are the external sources, external data sources. It was not in our internal CRM. And then there were other demographic data that we were able to get from different APIs. And once all those factors came together, we built an algorithm wherein it allowed the end users to assign their own weightages to the criteria. Normally, what happens is that we have a black box of a system wherein we assign a particular weighted average based on overall decision of the leadership. But I'm sure there would be many a case wherein someone wants to have a different kind of weightage to a different feature. Like for example, if let's say if I'm one of them and I want to give more priority to the frequency of the revenue coming from that particular customer as compared to the recency, right? So I'm going to put more weightage to the frequency and less weightage to the recency. And let's say if someone else who's the end user of the dashboard, he wants exactly the opposite of it. So that's where the problem arises because it isn't a one size fits all solution. But with this visualization, able to create a system which will help the end user be the owner of the dashboard, so as to say, because it's in their hands to using the slider option of Tableau. They were able to assign weightage of the features based on their own understanding, and in a way, they'll be able to have their own set of prioritization. And this was completely on their own. And yeah, I think the reason why it was such a breakthrough because it became an interactive question-driven tool, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, let's say if a regional manager they want to decide, okay, for my segment, wealth is more important than engagement. Let's say for some other regional manager, they'll say recency should matter more than any other part. So it gives them the feature to change that slider, and accordingly, the scoring is going to change and the ranking is going to change. So this was such a big challenge initially because we are balancing, the technical accuracy with simplicity because the math behind the scoring model was complex. But the interface has to feel very simple because it's the end users who are not very technically sound when it comes to Tableau. They are the ones using it and they are the ones driving this whole dashboard. Which is, I think, another reason why they really love that dashboard is because it gave them ownership, right? It's not just about them viewing the data and then deciding what to do. They're actually working on it and they are finding it actually doable and simple. So they weren't just looking at the score, but they were actually shaping it. So that's what makes it so special. And I'm so passionate about talking this because it took so much of time to create this, but the end result was so good that yeah, it felt like a personal win, and it really turned the whole prioritization from a static report criteria into decision playground, so as to say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it was a really great project and very innovative as far as the Tableau dashboard is concerned.
Based on the last thing that you mentioned about giving them ownership and not the exact numbers that you use, but basically just an average or the closest average, how would you measure that the impact of data visualization beyond the numbers? Like, have you seen that this is truly what drives decisions further?
Absolutely, and I think this is where the impact of a visualization tool really, really matters because when I talk about the prioritization dashboard, it was nothing fancy at all. It was just a set of table, which is basically a ranking of different customers.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't pretty to look at. I mean, I wouldn't say not pretty, but it wasn't something out of the box visualization, or you have a different kind of chart that nobody has ever seen before. It wasn't like that at all. It was a simple functional tabular form data wherein the main task is actually the math behind it. I mean, just to talk about impact as far as a number is concerned, it is the most used dashboard in our organization. I mean, of course, numbers really do matter, but when we talk about the impact of a visualization like that or any of the visualization that one makes, success of a visualization is it's just not measured by mere numbers, but it's actually measured that changes that people see after it. Like let's say adoption is also one more thing. I think that measures the impact of a visualization. So if I start seeing that report, that data visualization show up in leadership decks or team meetings or strategic discussions, that's when I know that it's becoming a part of decision making fabric, and it's not just one time report thing. And I think one more success I feel that happened with the report was the decision speed. So I think any good visualization, it shortens the time between seeing an insight and acting on it. So when people stop asking for clarification about the report, oh, how does this work? Instead, they are asking, okay, here's what we should do next. I feel that's the impact that a solid, impactful visualization makes, and I feel really lucky to have been instrumental in creating a visualization like that in many of my organizations. So yeah.
Last question that we ask for each guest on this podcast is, looking ahead, how do you see the role of data visualization evolving in tech teams or organizations that they strive to become more data driven?
Yeah, I think entering one of the most exciting phases for data visualization, because traditionally speaking, dashboards have always been viewed as a static, right? But I think you look at them, you interpret what they mean, and then you decide what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
But with generative AI, that dynamic is changing completely. Just to give you an example, I recently presented one of the Power BI dashboards that I created, and there was this really cool Copilot button there, which actually lets you ask questions about the visualization, and it will give you a proper summarized answer of it. And the executives really love that feature. So it really shows that people are becoming more conversational about it. Like, you can literally ask your system, okay, show me where the engagement dropped last quarter. And it won't just plot the result, it will actually explain the why of it. And I think that's such a great innovation, I would say. It really shifts bridges. I mean, it bridges the gap between humans and data. And of course, there's a lot of talk about AI also replacing these BI tools. And I don't think it's about replacement at all. I think it's more about augmentation. Because I feel LLMs, the large language models, they are incredible at summarizing the patterns, the surfacing insights. But humans still bring the context and the judgment, and all of these make the insights so much more valuable. So I feel it's more of a co-pilot relationship than just these replacement talks.
Yeah, sure. So these replacement talks are a bit about everywhere, I would say. So there are a lot of people that are speculating that every job will basically be replaced by AI by 2030, and basically everyone is panicking that the world will end because no one will have a job to do, except for maybe like blue collar jobs because robots are not so advanced anymore compared to AI. I would say that humans bring the context, and this is also apparent in every AI tool. Yeah, okay, the
Exactly.
AI tool is there, but if you don't give it some instruction or some prompt or some context behind, it doesn't create anything from scratch, basically.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, the human is the powerhouse, as we would say, in that sense. I like more the term of like co-pilot because
Yeah,
the human is basically translating these results into
exactly.
something that can help make a better decision. And I also like the thing that you mentioned about Copilot, that data has become a bit more conversational because not everyone is an analytical person that likes to see data and recognize the patterns or present this data, but they can also like understand it with having this Copilot next to them.
Exactly, yeah. I would say AI accelerates the exploration, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the humans who steer the meaning of it. So I don't think it's going to be replacing at all.
Yeah, and I really liked what you said about bridging the gap between data and conversation and maybe like executives there,
Exactly.
because what I think that your Copilot AI is able to tell you the why. The why is maybe able to make the human actually ask more questions about the problem and find a better solution about the problem by understanding the problem better. So
Exactly.
yeah, this I think has some advantages that we don't see from the scratch, I would say, by just like looking at a topic. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool that you have mentioned that and that you gave our audience this perspective as well. So before let you continue on with your day, I have a last question that I would like to do for every guest on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I would say, more optimistic because we have a lot of people that they are not so advanced in the AI and data world. But I would say, how would you advise someone to start?
So when we say start, you mean start in the data visualization
Yeah, for
course?
example, if someone wanted to start today, or if they are already working with data but they are not so familiar with data visualization as you are, what would be the first trick that they can do? So start on this journey, and then,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think, and that's a great question, and it's something I get a lot. But I would say the best way to start in data visualization is just to focus more on the curiosity and not the tools. I mean, just to be very honest, I think when it comes to actually learning about those BI tools, is the easiest thing you'll do, because it's like if you learn one tool, you'll be able to learn any tool. So it's not really about I need to perfect Tableau, I need to perfect Power BI. It's absolutely not about that. You don't need to be an expert, or you don't need to be a big data scientist to create, meaningful visuals. I would say start by asking simple but powerful questions like, okay, what decision should this chart help someone make?
Mm-hmm.
And once you have got this mindset, just pick one tool. And as I said, any kind of tool, if you know one tool,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to learn any other that the company demands, right? And just start exploring. And I would say don't chase complexity, chase clarity. Like try taking a data set that you care about. Just work on it. I mean, if you are a movie buff, go to the IMDb data set and just explore it and just visualize it. Any sort of charts. I mean, you don't have to start with the network charts right from the beginning. You just go with the bar graph. Just understand, because eventually it's not about okay, how perfect are you in Tableau. It's about how can you analyze this data and give me a solution to my problem. That's what we all want to do, right? We want to solve the problems, and we don't want to just be an expert in data, I mean, in Tableau or Power BI. So, yeah, and I think second thing I would say is just learn from feedback. I mean, has plethora of information right now, and of course, it can get very overwhelming. But just pick a lane and follow people, who share thoughtful visuals on LinkedIn, or a Tableau Public is also another great source. And just try to recreate something that resonates with you. And yeah, and as I said before, it's not just a technical skill, it is actually a soft skill, because eventually I think data visualization is a communication skill. It's about how you are able to translate the complex information and give it to the end user who will be able to understand that complexity without having to have that amount of technical knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just start simple and then eventually you'll find your flow.
Yeah, I think you gave pretty good summary, I would say, to how someone can start and how someone can implement something actionable. So I would like to thank you very much for your time, that you were able to come as a guest to podcast. It's been an honor to have you here and discuss about a topic like this that normally is not discussed as much as we would like. So I would like to thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here, and it was such an insightful conversation today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.